Hello, excuse me. Alright, so hello all my YouTube folks. If Joe comes and joins us, I hope he might do that. So the good news is, over the past couple of days, I've actually had 2 job interviews. Or a few days. I've actually had 2 job interviews. But this has also made me kind of realize a couple of things. So this is 7 things, stuff in the job applying world that's kind of wasting your time, okay? So the first thing on the list, I'm sure a lot of you looking for work right now will have a similar complaint, is ghost jobs, ghost job listings. CNBC just did a really good YouTube video about this. I recommend you watch it. Just put in ghost jobs CNBC, and they give you a lot of good information on it. So it's currently about 60% of job listings. 5 years ago, 8 out of 10 jobs would hire. Now it's 4 out of 10 jobs. So literally 6 of the jobs that you're applying for are probably not even legit. And if they are legit, they're not being hired for right at the moment. This is a big problem, because when you're seriously looking for a job, looking for a job is like a full-time job. People have gone from applying for a few jobs during unemployment to like hundreds. Just since January, I've applied for, I've lost count, probably well over 100 jobs, maybe brushing a couple hundred at this point. And there are people that apply for that in a month, like 3 or 4 jobs a day, which is, I don't even know how people have the bandwidth for that. But when you consider that if you apply for 2,000 jobs and 1,200 of those jobs are not legit, that's a big deal. That is a huge waste of time, energy, and sometimes even money, depending on if you're paying for the job site you're using or whatever. And a lot of people, including myself, feel like this should be illegal. If you're not hiring for a job, don't advertise it. Okay, number 2, job fairs. Job fairs used to be a really great way to kind of network a bit and potentially land, a job, because, a lot of them they used to be hiring. I went to a job fair for a school district up here, and it's actually at a high school. And that parking lot at the school was more full than it would be on a school day. I'm not kidding you. And in fact, a lot of the people going had spilled into the private Catholic school's parking lot next door. We're talking like, I don't even want, probably over 2,000 people at this job fair. And I applied for a lot of positions, and I went and specifically spoke to the schools that I applied for, and literally almost all of them told me that they weren't interviewing for that today. And this is something that the state told me to go to, or suggested I go to. And if you look at the whole job fairs thing on YouTube, a lot of people have gone to job fairs, and they have been told that an entire company's just not even hiring. They're only there to network. And that is a waste of time and resources, a huge waste of time and resources, because you drove down there, you had to drive down there, and fuel is not the cheapest thing in the world. A lot of people don't have a car. Maybe they had to Uber there or what have you. So I don't know how you would kind of ensure that the places are hiring before you waste time going to a job fair, unless the whole networking aspect is really worth it for you. They could be looking for a Goldilocks candidate, and it could be that way with ghost jobs as well. I mean, they might just be looking for that one candidate that's perfect, but it's very difficult to tell if they're actually hiring or not. So number 3, out of 2 recent interviews I've had, it really feels like they were trying to talk me out of the job, by saying things like, it's a really stressful job, or it's only this many hours, or it only pays this much, or something like that. And it's like, it seems like you're trying to get me to go away. Why did you have me come to the interview? You're the ones that invited me to this interview. I need a job. I don't see what the problem is here. If I had issues with any of the things you're telling me, I would have, I figured that these were going to be, the job said part-time on the listing, I don't quite get this. I actually had an interview yesterday morning, and it went okay compared to a lot of the interviews I've had, in the last couple of years or what have you. But I had this feeling about it, like, how were your stress levels when you did this before? Because we got this time limit and this window, and I mean, they have to figure people are going to lie about that anyway. Either people are telling the truth and they can handle it, or they're lying and saying they can. I don't get that line of thinking, really. It's like they're trying to scare you away so you're not wasting their time, or something. I'm not completely sure what the angle is there, but I would have expected not to have had an interview that was an hour long if they really felt that way about me. Having an interview that's an hour is pretty impressive these days. I've applied for a couple of jobs that require you to do your onboarding stuff online before you come to the second actual in-person interview. So I went one for a deco, had a video interview, and then you're supposed to do your onboarding forms, and then you come in for the in-person, like, onboarding and background check and everything like that. Yeah, it's a little bit weird. But one thing that I'm kind of finding is that the links that they send you for this often just tend to not work. Like, as soon as you put in your first piece of information, you get an error or something like that. And there's always this rigmarole of trying to get it figured out. And then you end up having to kind of come in anyway. It's like to do the onboarding forms, and then maybe if you're lucky you'll have your in-person interview while you're there. But they could also make you come back. The last time I applied for this position with the deco, for the same job, I basically just had to, like, drop out of doing it because it's half an hour for me to drive out there on the highway. And I'm trying to, kind of preserve my car, so I'm taking it on the highway less. So it's going to take a little bit more time this time. And my thing was, like, you guys are just wasting my time and resources. Another company reached out to me, and I ended up getting hired with them, luckily. But it was just getting to be almost kind of a joke. So if the links and forms they're sending you aren't working, you need to get on that, like, right away, and make sure that they understand that you want to come out there, minimally until you're actually hired, because it'll just, eat up your time and your fuel. Now, I kind of mentioned number 5 here in another video, and that is, it used to be that you'd get called to come in for an interview like tomorrow or after the weekend or in a couple of days or something like that. Now they do this thing where they call you kind of not all that early in the morning, really, and then they're like, can you come in today in like 2 or 3 hours? And for one thing, that doesn't give you very much time to prep for an interview. I mean, what if you've been just sitting around applying for jobs and you haven't like shaved in like 4 days or something like that? What if you're not home when they call? What if you're at a hot spot, applying for other jobs because you can't afford internet at home? So it's like by the time you actually get home and shaved up and dressed, you've got to be at the interview in like 2 hours. If it's half an hour away, it doesn't give you any time to really prepare for it. And you feel like you're going into this interview, not that crisp, which can be a real issue because, they pay attention to stuff like that now. You go into an interview, you've got to be, not stressed, and you've got to be, ready to go. I think that this is a tactic to kind of weed people out, because I have had some luck rescheduling that once or twice. Like, I'm over in Terrell or I'm in Temple right now. It's just not going to be possible for me to get back and get to your interview today. I've had some luck rescheduling those, but I usually reschedule it for tomorrow unless tomorrow is like Saturday or something like that. I have asked from time to time if they do interviews over the weekends, but they usually don't. For some reason, HR people still get Saturday and Sunday off when no one else seems to. So maybe that's part of the benefit of being in HR. I don't know. So you got to be careful with that. I figure if you reschedule, even if they're willing to talk to you, that's put you down on the rungs on the ladder. The interview might just be a token interview at that point. And who knows, a lot of the interviews that you do might just be token interviews because they have to do so many a year. And, they may already know who they're hiring, in fact. They may want to hire internally. 1 second. Sorry about that. I was being gnawed on by a cat. Now, the other thing that can cause is, a lot of us are taking like gig work. I have another part-time job that I work and have for about 10 years now. So what if I'm set up to, go do some work that day and they're kind of insistent upon doing the interview today? I might have to cancel that paying gig to, go in and do this interview that has a 60% chance of not going anywhere. It's kind of a problem for me. All right, number 6. I might have slightly mentioned this in another video or two, but it is a waste of time. You almost never leave the interview these days with the job. They always have more interviews. It used to be that if you went in and you did the interview and you were like an ideal candidate, you had the experience they were looking for, you had the availability they were looking for, and the will to come into work, you didn't live very far away so they could call you in an emergency or something like that, they would stop doing interviews and give you the job right there. But that is just really seldom happening these days. Now, I agree that there is a bit of fairness to that, because in some ways the liberal in me feels like they should, interview everybody who applied if they can. I think that's fair. The conservative in me tends to feel like, hey, I'm absolutely qualified for this job. Hire me. I'd like to leave an interview with a job more often these days, rather than being kept warm like enchiladas on a buffet. That's another thing. If a company says they're going to keep you warm, that's not saying a great deal about how they feel about you, is it? That's like saying, like, well, you're an okay candidate, but we'd really have somebody a little better. But you're a good backup candidate. So, you know, we'll go ahead and keep you in the till, you know. I find that a little bit offensive. I realize it's expensive to, you know, for a company to hire and train an employee now, but, you know, that's just part of doing business. A lot of things are just part of the cost of doing business. When you're doing business, you're taking a risk, and I don't care if you're, you know, Kroger or a little locksmith guy down the street. That, regardless of the size or the scope of the company, losing money on a bad hire is just potentially part of doing business. Stop gnawing on me. Last but not least, it's pretty much you these days that have to do all of the contacting. And part of that might be because you've applied for a ghost job, but let's assume that you've applied for a legitimate job, right? Like this interview I had yesterday, they just hadn't looked at my application at all. I was sitting on the site, just application received. So I had to call, and I had to talk to the store manager, and I had to, you know, get everything arranged and taken care of. It was the same with the interview before that. I had to call them, I had to, you know, set it up. I had to, you know, arrange a time, I had to go in. There used to be a time where, you know, they would call you, they'd say, hey, can you come in at this time and date? If not, it wasn't a problem to reschedule it within a day or two. And, you know, you'd go in and hopefully you'd leave with a job, right? The other thing to keep in mind about rescheduling is it's not like they're not going to do any more interviews that day. So if you can't go in, that gives them the opportunity to talk to, you know, another person rather than you. So that is a good reason to try not to reschedule, but sometimes, like I said, it's just not a real possible thing. Okay, well, that's 7 things in the current job world that are, well, Joe's climbing the door there, that are potentially wasting job seekers' time, effort, and money. I hope that this was a useful video. Sorry for the feline interruptions, but you know, you have cats. This is just it's part of the cost of having cats, right? Anyway, have a good day, everybody. This is goemonronin and Joe signing off. Bye-bye.